Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. And in this particular video, I want to talk to you about what are PhD in business administration salaries. So I'm actually a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this reciprocity sort of project to help other people out that need some advice along the way and need some help along the way. The whole idea of it was me trying to give back to all the people that helped out me and sort of pay it forward as much as I possibly can. So let's get into this. Where can you actually find the salaries of PhDs in business administration? I'm going to send you to, there's a link. If you look at the show notes below, it's through the AACSB accreditation. You can find out the executive summary reports of the PhD salaries in business administration. Just click on that link. So you can find it if you just search AACSB, and that's the accreditation, American Accreditation of colleges, I don't know, something to do with business schools. It's accreditation or agency for business schools, and a lot of the business schools in America participate in AACSB. I should really know what it is, right? But basically, they do a survey of people that are College of Business professors, and they ask them what their salaries are. And so you can find out what the salaries are pretty quickly if you go there, sort of general salaries of them. So you'll find out that they're pretty high in general. Basically, for every year that you go to higher education in America, as well as in Canada, in a few parts of the world, it equals to roughly about $10,000 worth of salary going forward, give or take. So you can calculate that. That's pretty general in terms of education sort of gains that you get in a lot of different areas, but that's something you should look at. So I just wanted to point out or start talking about, why are PhDs in business administration salaries so high, or that particular way? Maybe they are actually really low relative to what the marketplace should bear. It's a really interesting question. There's lots of stuff to think about in this particular area. Lots of people, at least in the business school, they study why CEO pay is so high. And this is kind of similar to that, right? Or why it's actually might be too low compared to what's in the marketplace. So the first one that is kind of obvious, it's sort of a supply and demand for the skill set, right? So it's pretty rigorous and it's pretty hard to get through the PhD program, any particular PhD program. And so just because of that rigor, and because there is a pretty high demand for this particular degree in the marketplace, is that you're going to, the wages are probably going to be a little bit higher than in other particular industries or other particular roles. And that's really just because it's supply and demand at the end of the day, right? So a lot of people want to go to business school, and the demand is there. A lot of businesses want to get executive education, and the demand is there. But then it's also really hard to get a PhD. And that's actually one of the things that you'll talk to anybody that has a PhD, unless they're remarkable, is that they'll just say it's really hard to get that PhD, right? And a lot of people can't do it. The selection is actually quite high. The other thing to think about with this particular degree, or people that are in the College of Business, just like in a law school, and again, this is all relative to people that are mostly it's an America and Canadian situation, North America situation, but it does apply across the world, relative to the salaries that are the norm in the particular region, right? So in here in a business school, most of the people that end up getting a PhD have already pretty advanced degrees in general before they actually get into a PhD program. And then we kind of select on that when we're looking for people. So for example, if you are wanting to do a PhD in accounting, for example, you probably are an accountant already that has the accounting designation, and you're actually going to, most people that go into accounting, for example, are probably going to give up salary compared to what they would get in industry to go work in the business school. It's the same thing that's going to happen in chemistry as well, right? If you're a chemist, you probably make a lot more in sort of the industry than you are going to in academia. That's kind of the norm. And, maybe if you're going into strategy, for example, a ton of people already have engineering degrees. I myself have one of them. There is a lot of people that are like this that already have sort of degrees that would command a pretty good salary in the marketplace. So it's not that they are, it's not that they're any special, but then those people are going to self-select into a particular role that are going to give them a pretty good wage. They're not going to drop down significantly. It's just people are really rational. If you believe people are really rational, they're not going to go into something that they're going to drop significantly in wages going forward. They should at least sort of recuperate the wages in the long term by going into that particular career, right? So you have to think about that. The other thing is that the perception, so a third thing that you should think about is the perception of the knowledge that is generated in a college of business. So and this is key, it's perception that the knowledge generated in a college of business is a little bit more applicable than in other particular areas. Inapplicable in that people can they can demonstrate a return from the thing that you're studying. Now, this doesn't say that we study some really esoteric, some really sort of really strange things, and that is okay. And in fact, we're encouraged to study really strange things, and we might study any particular industry, and we're trying to sort of discover new things. But at the same time, people like to see a return on that particular investment in terms of the things that you're studying. So it just so happens that people perceive that there is a greater return from the things that we study, and it's not the case at all. Some of the stuff is really strange, and that is okay. Can we demonstrate the return on all the stuff that we study? I hope not. Like, that would not be good science if we're doing things that only generates a return on investment of the things that you're doing. We should be studying things that are esoteric because we have no idea what the return is going to be in the future until we actually study those things, right? Like that's going to be bad science if we are sort of bounded by the things that only are proven to generate good returns in the long run. So you have to think about that, right? With the PhD in business administration salaries, is that there is some sort of a perception, at least from the marketplace, whatever that marketplace is, that there is some sort of return on investment of the thing that they're doing, right? So people are just kind of curious to find out. So for example, the standard question that a lot of people would ask in a business school is, why does company performance increase? It could be in any particular field, right? You could be in management information systems, accounting, for example, how you can sort of change accounting practices to increase the performance of the company. Well, if you can demonstrate that, then that is that's a pretty good return on investment. And if somebody can learn how to actually increase the return on investment of getting that particular education, then, there's probably going to be some demand for that particular thing. So, but again, there is no rules for riches in any sort of way, right? We don't know what is going to generate sort of profitability, but we have kind of an idea of what that is, but it's not sort of specific on what that is, right? So that's important to think about. And the last thing, and you'll notice if you go into those salaries, I'm not going to point out what they are because I want to make sure that this video is kind of relevant going forward. But you'll notice that some people actually do really, really well in the College of Business, as a professor. First of all, you have to keep in mind that there is a huge selection effect with this particular survey. It's only asking a few people, only a few people are answering that. It's only people that are American universities. It's really, really, there's a big selection effect that happens. So that's the caveat that you have to think about. And, that's stuff that we as academics kind of worry about, but, a lot of people don't worry about that. But the key is when you start looking at, okay, some of the salaries are pretty high, but you are looking at people that are at the top of their game, and anybody in any particular industry or any particular field that is at the top of their game is going to command a high salary. It just so happens that it is publicly reported, or you can get information on that. So for example, if you're an artist, most artists don't make a lot of money, but the people that are at the top of their game are going to make a lot of money, and that's okay. Ball players, people that play baseball, the vast majority of the people that play baseball are not going to make that much money off the thing that they do and they love to do. But there's a couple that are going to make a lot of money off of that, right? If they make it into the major leagues and they're a star in the major league, they're going to make a pretty good income off of that. If you are a garbage collector and you figure out the sort of secret sauce and you actually own a bunch of garbage trucks, for example, you're going to make a substantial amount of money. And there's lots of entrepreneurs that do that. If you're a lawnmower person and you go out and mow lawns and you figure out how to hire 100 people and they're all mowing lawns, you're probably going to do pretty well in the marketplace because of that. Even though the average person actually doesn't do that well. This is really, really normal in terms of the distribution of returns that you get from any particular industry, and you should be well aware of that when you look at this, right? That is a key thing that it kind of ignores, to be honest, and that these surveys ignore, is that there's a lot of people that are going into it and they're not actually doing that well. They're struggling. Maybe they actually don't get an academic job and they are, maybe they are doing things like adjunct teaching or something like that, or they're a graduate student for a very, very long time before they actually get that academic job, which is kind of the norm, is that you have to be a graduate student for a long time. So you have to really consider those things before you actually start looking at, oh, wow, that salary says it's really high. That's an important thing to think about. So those 4 things are why PhDs in business administration are that particular way. It's not any different in terms of supply and demand. In terms of an industry, it's not a lot different than a lot of other industries that are out there. You also have to take to sort of think about that the salaries themselves, or the people that are obtaining these salaries, they're already have been vetted in other marketplaces, and they're choosing to go into a business school to teach and to do those things. And then finally, there is, again, it's the perception. It is probably not the truth that there is some return from the knowledge that we actually study and generate. So that's all I wanted to talk about in this particular video. Hopefully you like it, and do go check out those salaries. It's kind of interesting to look at it. Pretty useful to see that kind of stuff, and I thought I'd just point it out because you're probably not aware of this accreditation survey that's out there. So take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.